This is Chef Christopher Wolf from Arizona Culinary Institute with basic chicken fabrication. So looking at the whole bird here, the first step that you're going to do is separate the leg from the rest of the bird. If you've cut in the right place, there's a nice open cavity between where the leg and the breast would come together. Once you've made the cut, you grab the leg and just hyper-extend the leg to pop the bone out of the socket. At this point, we'll go ahead and repeat the same step to the other side. The drumstick and the thigh should stay together as one piece. Once both legs have been opened up, we'll go ahead and flip the chicken over, and we want to locate the oysters. They're about halfway down the back, and some people say they're the two best bites on the entire chicken, so we want to make sure we get those off. In order to do so, we cut up along the back and then right above the oyster, and then once we find the oyster, you can go in either with your knife or finger and sort of pry the oyster out of the socket that it's in. After that, you're going to go ahead and cut straight back, separating the entire leg from the bird. When ready, you'll repeat the same step to the other side, again locating the oyster, prying it out of its socket, and once the oyster is free, you will once again separate the entire leg from the bird. Do your best to stay as close to the skeleton as possible so we get as much meat off of the bird as we can. At this point, you'll see both legs removed, very little loss. We'll flip the bird back over. We're going to go ahead and spread the skin out to make sure the breasts still have full coverage of skin. We're going to find the keel bone, which is the poultry term for breastbone, and we're going to cut along one side of the keel bone. At this point, we're going to continue to work our knife down along the rib cage, ultimately trying to separate the entire breast, including the tender, from the bird. Main thing to consider here is keeping your knife as close to the bird as possible to remove as much meat as you can. When the breast is largely removed, we're working towards a chicken supreme, so we want to make sure that the wing and breast are still attached when we remove them from the bird. Supreme meaning best, is going to imply that it's going to be a breast with the skin on and a Frenched wing bone left attached, but we'll get to that later. Here you'll see, removing the second breast from the bird. Again, cutting along one side of the keel bone, keeping our knife as close to the bird as we can to maximize our yield. It is essential to have a good sharp knife here. As with any sort of fabrication, a sharp knife will certainly be your best tool. Once you get most of the breast removed again, make sure that the breast and wing are still attached, and then cut directly through the joint, removing the breast and wing as one piece. At this point, you'll see a clean carcass, very little loss. We'll go ahead and save that, most likely for making chicken stock moving forward. So back to the chicken breast supreme. At this point, we should have a breast and wing still attached. We're going to go in along the wing and cut down to the upper portion of the wing bone, and then hyperextend that joint, sort of like the elbow of the chicken, popping the bone free from the joint. At this point, to French the bone, French obviously meaning to remove the skin, leave the bone attached for decorative purposes, we just scrape down towards the breast. We have a nice clean wing bone. At that point, we'll flip the breast over and we're going to carefully remove the chicken tender. Once removed, we'll go ahead and evaluate this side of the breast. We'll make sure there are no bones or cartilage anywhere. Cut off any excess skin. Trim off a little bit of fat on the side. And then when we flip the breast back over, we should have a breast, a wing bone left attached, Frenched for presentation. The tender is removed, no additional bones or cartilage. So to repeat that, breast skin side up. I'm going to cut in near the elbow, if you will, of the chicken wing. I'm cutting down to the bone. We're not cutting through the socket. We will hyperextend, popping the bone free from the elbow joint, scraping any meat or skin or cartilage from the bone to make sure that it is completely clean. Then we remove the wing. At this point, we're ultimately going to just assess the breast, have a look at it, flip it over, look for any additional bones or cartilage, remembering to remove the tender. Take a moment to evaluate, trim off any excess skin or fat. And when we're happy, we'll flip it back over, evaluate from the top, and again, we have a boneless skin-on chicken breast with only the Frenched wing bone left attached. Now we'll move on to the leg. At this point, we're going to try to keep the thigh and the drumstick together as one piece, and we're going to debone the entire leg to create a chicken ballotine. So we're going to cut along the thigh bone to expose it, and then scrape a little bit of the meat away from the thigh bone. Work our finger underneath, because the ultimate goal here is to separate the bone from the meat. We cut outwards, removing the bone and cartilage. And with the leg fabrication in this style, we do quite a bit of scraping to remove the meat from the bone. So at this point, we're scraping towards the knee joint to clean off the thigh bone. We're going to continue to do so until we actually get down to the knee joint, and we can't really go any further. At this point, I would say this is the most tricky part of the fabrication. We're going to try our best to cut around the knee joint. If you cut through the knee joint and remove the thigh bone, it's okay. All is not lost. It's just going to be a little bit harder to finish from this point. But if you can keep the thigh bone attached, it gives you something to hold on to as you sort of rotate the chicken in your hand, doing a series of cuts and scrapes around the knee joint. You'll continue to do this until you've gotten all the way around the knee joint, and then at this point you are at the shin bone, or you could say the bone through the drumstick. Now we will begin to scrape again. At this point we are just trying to remove as much of the meat from the bone as we can, scraping down towards what would have been the foot of the leg. At this point we will take our knife, we will hold and pull gently, and then cut to remove the entire bone from the meat. We will cut through the knee joint. We will put the smaller bone aside for chicken stock, and then the larger bone of the drumstick we're going to French one side, again meaning to clean it up for presentation purposes, removing all meat and fat and cartilage. We'll leave the other end intact for the moment. And we're going to address the leg. At this point it very much looks like an inside-out chicken leg, because that's what it is. But anything that can be turned inside out can be turned back right side out again. So we turn the leg back right side out. You can see the skin is intact. We're going to evaluate, make sure there's no bones or cartilage, and then take the French bone and put it right back into the place where we got it from. At this point, we have a chicken ballotine leg, Frenched, thigh, and drumstick still left attached. So to watch the leg again, and again, be patient. This is a challenging step. The Frenching of the leg, ballotine style cut. This is definitely not a beginner step, but once you master it, it is definitely a skill that will serve you well. So we're coming in here. Again, if you recall, we're trying to separate the thigh bone from the meat. And we'll proceed with the scraping the bone free of as much meat as we can. And we're merely just rotating the chicken leg in our hand, using the thigh bone as a handle. We're going to continue scraping until we get down to that knee joint again. At this point, the trickiest part of the fabrication is just working our way around the knee joint. And if you'll notice, we're merely rotating the chicken leg in our hand, and we're doing just a small series of cuts and scrapes as we work our way around the knee joint, ultimately trying to get back to the bone of the drumstick again. And then, once we've gotten the entire way around the knee joint, we're back on the bone. We're going to begin scraping yet again. We're going to scrape the bone until we are all the way down to where the foot would have been, and removing as much meat from the bone as possible. Hold with the back of the knife, pull, and then cut, freeing the bone from the meat. Set the leg off to the side, and split through the knee joint. Small bone saved for stock, larger bone. We pop the cartilage off of the end where the foot would have been. We have a nice Frenched leg bone. At this point, we take our inside-out chicken leg, go ahead and turn it back right side out. Meat, skin, everything is intact. We'll go ahead and examine the leg, make sure there's no additional bones or cartilage, at which point we will take the bone, put it right back into where we got it from, and then once more we have a chicken leg ballotine. And that is chicken fabrication for basic culinary arts at Arizona Culinary Institute. 2 French legs, 2 chicken breast supremes, 2 tenders, 2 wings.